All right, Kevin, this is for Tuesday, March 12th. Let's start with wheat. We are along these calls, settled at 427 and three quarter. And so the 1% violation on this, formation at 430 and a quarter, which is that basically a 3-year channel structure. The 1% violation is at 426 even. So I have a question for you that we could answer tomorrow, probably should answer before, the open. Do we activate that stop loss, if you will, um, you know, on a day by day basis, or do we wait for the end of the week? If we wait for the end of the week, we have to be willing to endure, in my opinion, continued weakness. You can see the volatility. This is a weekly chart. And by the way, upper left will always show you the name of the market. But you can see it's certainly in the realm of possibility that we could get down to this 410 half low from 2017. That is the 2017 low. We could actually test that by Friday's close. And I guess then the next question is, for instance, we're long the 430 and 435 calls. Where are the 450 and 455 calls priced? Is that the right way to do this? Yeah. Where are the 450s and 455s right now in terms of price forecasting in the event that we drop another 20 cents down to 410 even by the end of the week? Do we want to endure that? Or do we get out with a daily settlement today below 426 even? I generally like to err on the side of caution. I don't like to be too tight though with the risk management. I don't like to I don't like to take these little razor cuts repetitively. But at the same time, do we want to see this market go down to 410 even by the end of the week and clearly settle below 430 and a quarter? That's a possibility here. I think what we want to see, let me go back to this is daily here. I think if we settle above, what do I got here? Come on now. This is week. This is weekly. Bear with me. I'm going to go back to the daily chart. If we settle today above 439 even, this channel structure here, I think that bodes well for us as we look through the balance of the week. And then if you look at the newsletter itself, let me take a look here. I've got sorry about this. I should have had this ready to go. The newsletter itself, 451 and a quarter. I don't see us closing above that today. That's dropping at a pretty good clip. That's the point I'd like to see us settle above to indicate a good weekly low. But if we can settle above that 439 formation, that is good too. So I'm done with the wheat. We're long the calls. The big question is risk management, stopping out. Do we do it today with a settlement below 426 even? Or do we wait for the week to play out itself? I could be sold either way, but I don't want to see us get down to 410 even. I guess the question is where are the 450 and 455 calls, because that's essentially where they will be, the calls that we bought today, if we get down to 410 even by the end of the week. Let's move on to, I'm going to basically cover the same markets I did yesterday in the same recording, RBOB daily. We're still pushing against this channel top here. I'll let you take a look at the newsletter itself. That's, let me just go ahead and open that up. Come on now. There it is. This 1.8457 to 8538 area. I'm going to call this a 2 right now. There's nothing to do at this very moment, but we could talk about setting a short at 84.57 to 85.38. I don't know how familiar you are with this market. I think there's something to be said for trading markets you're familiar with and maybe kind of observing those that you're not for a while. So I could be sold on not doing anything here, but this is an area, 84.57, is consistent with this 85.38 formation that we could sell. Whether we buy puts or sell outright is open for discussion. So that's still there, and these are the levels for Tuesday. And then let's take a look finally at crude. Crude did move away from us, yesterday, but we were never at a point where we could buy it anyway. This is something that CQG does. It screws up. These formations don't hold. In any event, 54.32 is a convergence right now between these two. This is our support through next week, and above which expecting the 61 handle over the next couple of weeks. Now this is our resistance for today, 57.44 for Tuesday. If we close above it, that is a buy signal. I think the market is then buyable, if you will. We could talk about this tomorrow morning. A settlement above 57.44, expecting that 61 handle long-term resistance that you'll find on page 2 on the crude oil newsletter. So there's two things to do here. You either buy a settlement above 57.44 or you buy a dip down to 54.32. That's really the only thing to do right now. The only time I would sell it is if we settle below 54.32 or we start pushing into that 61 handle over the next week or so. And that becomes prime short setting territory. And that's kind of a big picture short sell, by the way, on page 2 of the newsletters. In the 61 handle, those former channel bottoms are a ceiling through spring. And once we test them, the market can actually fall back. So we can talk about that as well. I'm going to call this a 2 as well. In fact, the only one here, obviously, was the wheat letter that we are certainly long. Both the RBOB and crude, I'd call them 2s. We're waiting for the market to tip its hand before we act. And so now I'm going to go through the string of non-newsletter markets that I did yesterday. I'm going to begin with the Canadian dollar. Let's see, how do I have this? Okay, here's the Canadian. We're still in the same situation, consolidating the last few days. You've got resistance. If you can see this channel 4-2 on this yellow square, that tells me that it's at 75.08 tomorrow. So that's our ceiling for Canadian, and below which I show weakness, at least as I mentioned before, down to 73.30. But quite possibly this channel bottom down here looks like nothing but a bunch of lines, but there's a channel structure down here in the lower 72 handle that I think is our target, holding below this range of resistance that begins at 74.87 and ends tomorrow at 75.08. If we close above 75.08, that's more of a liquidate your short position rather than go long situation, in my opinion, as I mentioned before. Let's go to the euro currency. So there is a 2 as well. I think we're kind of fine-tuning our definitions here. Once again, we're holding above this 1.1212. Yesterday's low was 1228. So we're in this two-sided framework between it and 1505. Is that still 1505? Yes, 1505, 1504.7. This is a weekly chart, by the way, not daily. Worth remembering that. Some of these I'm kind of mixing up a bit. Let me go back to the Canadian real quick just to see if it was that. I think that was a daily chart. Yes, that's a daily chart. So this is a daily chart, and yet the euro currency is weekly, mostly because it's all big picture at this point in time. So still in this two-sided framework, close below 1212, market continues south, but overall heavy below 1505. This is a 2 as well, in my opinion. If we settle below 1212, that is a secondary sell signal. We could talk about staying short the euro currency then down into this low 1.03 handle, upper 1.03. You got 1.049, 1.0473, blah, blah, blah. Let's go on to the British pound, which we've talked about. And so now this is a week by week chart, by the way, weekly chart. We're back above this channel formation. This is more and more telling me that while we're consolidating here and there's no follow through to the upside, this channel structure at 1.2831 is our floor. And so I think buying this on a dip is certainly permissible, and also going short if we settle a week below it. Holding above 1.2831, we remain, I'd call it a stable to even a bullish framework, but not screaming bullish, just kind of a gradual. We could actually reach into the 1.38 handle, say into later March, early April, holding above 1.2831. So this is a 2 as well. Let's go to gold. Gold did test support, as you're well aware. Now, so this is what happens with, as I was telling you, I have to redraw these things a lot. I have to get on the high. I have already talked to them once about this, and they did not have an answer for me. But here's that channel structure. It's at 1283.1. on Tuesday. So I'll just change that for you here, 3.1. Um, that is our channel structure. It did essentially contain selling pressures a few days ago. As I mentioned before, we're kind of in this head and shoulders perhaps formation. If this thing fills out and then we settle below 1283.1, I think there's a pretty valid sell signal down into the 1230s. Until then, holding above 1283.1, you could put a resting bid here, or you could wait to see a settlement below, because I think that would be a valid sell-off, sell signal. Until then, we're kind of testing this speed line, which is consistent with this former low and this high here in the very low 1300 area. But overall, as I was mentioning before, holding above this channel structure, wouldn't be surprised if over the next few weeks we get into the 1330s, 1340s. And so there's that. We could talk about that if you like. Let's go on to silver. Silver, this is a weekly chart once again, so these numbers didn't really need to be updated. Still have 14.901, consistent with these former highs. This is support that can absorb selling through March, and as I was mentioning, there's reason to believe we could actually reach this much more significant 1678 area over the next month or two. Along the way, we do have resistance this week at 15.624. If we settle above it at the end of the week, then I think there's even more of a validation that this 1670s are in reach. Inversely, if we settle the week below 14.901, the market will leg south. How far south is a good question, but I think the 13.86 level at the very least over the following 2 to 3, 3 to 5 weeks. And so that was silver. Let's move on to copper. Copper was a buy, if you recall. This could be a resting bid. Weekly chart, a 2.8598. This is a longer term. By that I mean, the last 4 or 5 months. We are now above it. There's really nowhere to go but up from here. And I do think that this 3.2975 area is attainable. We could take a look at some out of the money calls if you want. Or at the money calls. I know you like at the money calls. So we could talk about this. I do like this setup right now. If we settle below it, then it's basically a sign of weakness back to this double bottom area over the following month or two. But until then, this is a stable to bullish market. We're having trouble right now getting above this old consolidation area. You've got some lows in here and lows in here, so we're kind of getting caught into that low area right now. But I don't think that's a formidable zone. And once, say, we settle above that low settlement of 2.9930, the high was 2.9770. If we can get above, we can close in this range like a magnet. Will be drawn to this upper area. But I think this upper area is likely anyway over the next several months while holding above that 2.8598. So there's copper. Let's take a look at the bonds, update ourselves just a bit with the bond market and see how to ease back a bit. Once again, nothing to do here. Just keep an eye on it. If we get a nice rally in the bond market over the next, this is a weekly chart, over the next few weeks into the 149.14 area, that's a prime short setting area. Also an aggressive upward pivot point into mid to later year. NASDAQ, this was a 2 as well. I had the 30 and the NASDAQ as number 2s. Look at that, held that. You get 7024.75. We slipped below it a little bit, but it held essentially today. This formation 7037.75 for the entire week. And not only that, we actually closed the day itself above that last high at 71.59 and change. We settled at 7200. So this actually looks positive. I wouldn't be surprised to see this channel top this week at 73.89.5. We could play inside this for several weeks, perhaps. And if we settle below 70.37 3/4, that would have bearish consequences, as I mentioned earlier, down to this low area in the lower half of the 64 handle. If you're still with me, we could take a look at some of the markets. Take a quick look at the Japanese yen. Nothing going once again. You can see we're just sort of in no man's land here in the Japanese yen. Let me scroll through British pound, gold, silver, copper, platinum. I'll take a quick look at platinum. Yeah, it's continuing to ease back here, but it actually settled higher on the week, on a week by week. This is a weekly chart. So once again, this is your neck stick your neck out area. Not much to do in between, down in the 777 area. And I'm thinking out loud here with regard to all of my daily letters. The beans are weak. The grains are weak. Corn is weak. But corn is one of these situations. We could take a look at corn right now. Here we go again with the, I have to talk to these people. This is the, bear with me here. You can see this actually on today's newsletter. We settled below this formation a few days ago. So this is a secondary sell signal down to this channel structure at the bottom in the low 350s. And if you look on page 2 on the May corn letter, I've got an ultra long-term support level of 346.5 all month long. That's our target area down here, the low 350s, upper 340s. So do we play the short side right now? You know, I hate to say it's a missed opportunity at this juncture because we're a full 5 cents from resistance. We have a secondary sell signal today with the settlement below the 363.25 low from last September. So I think this lower area is likely over the next week or two. We could wait this one out and bottom pick this zone. We'll be watching it closely. So that's corn. Bean meal, similar structure here. We settled below this low. I'm looking for 287 now over the next few weeks. 303.7 is our resistance now. We got some, some stop points on the way down, some support levels, but really 287, even if you look at page 2, it's a long-term trend line. That is our next 2 to 3 week target. So we could consider playing the short side in bean meal. Soybeans themselves, I'm not crazy about doing anything. Here we are. Hold on a second. Now, by the way, this is all illustrated on the newsletters themselves. I'm basically testing the upload here of YouTube because I'm quite sure we're past the 15-minute mark. 881.75. This is a weekly containment level, but overall, if you've been watching my bean analysis, I'm looking for the mid 850s, upper 850s here over the next few weeks. So this could be another wait for us to get there. The problem is when you wait for that, you realize in hindsight, I should have been short the entire time. But the next go with short sale is below 881.75. This is a structure that could actually contain weekly selling pressure. So I'm not crazy about getting short in this particular vicinity. As I scroll down, we've covered wheat, S&P, not much going there right now. We may rally to a significant area. Let me see if I have it on this chart. It's basically this. This is around, 20. Come on, May 11. It's 28.38.5. 28.38.5 is this formation. If we settle above it, this market looks bullish into mid-year. Until then, this is an area that can contain buying well into possibly through the second quarter. 18.5 minutes. Well, that's all I'm going to cover right now. If you stuck with me this entire time, we've covered just about everything. Wheat needs to be discussed in the morning, I think, before the open to see how we manage the risk. And if you want to talk about copper or gold, those are the two other markets I think that are worth looking at, or crude oil with a buy signal, either a dip to buy in the 54 handle or buying above that 57 and change level with the settlement today. And that's all I'm going to say. 19 minutes, and we'll talk tomorrow morning.